Hey everyone, this is Nyeswah-Wiafe from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast. Hello, folks. Welcome to Game Changers Podcast series powered by Laddering Your Success. I'm your host, Nyeswah-Wiafe, alongside LYS co-founder and creator, Festus Samoye. In today's episode, we're thrilled to introduce an inspiring guest who has been empowering communities through mental health education and innovation. She also has an amazing survival story. Join us as we delve into the world of mental health, personal development, and self-improvement with Ms. Comfort Nyeswah-Wiafe, a licensed mental health counselor and the creator of Equipped to Prosper, a mental health community that provides resources, opportunities, and experiences for Africans to feel safe, seen, heard, supported, and understood by quality and relatable African mental health providers. Welcome, Comfort. We're so thrilled to have you on Game Changers. How are you doing today?
I am doing good. Hi, Ole. Hi, Festus. Thank you both so much for being here. Greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's totally our pleasure. So let's dive right into the interview. Please, if you can, tell us about your upbringing. Tell us about your story.
Short story. So my mother is Liberian. My dad is Ghanaian. I was born shortly before the Liberian Civil War, which lasted for 14 years. And so that led us to being displaced, leaving our home, Liberia. And we went to Ghana, to my father's country. And we was there for some time, a few years or so, 10 years or so, and then we migrated to the United States of America. So my first exposure to life was experiencing the Civil War. And here I am, decades later, being a therapist. And in 2024, there's another Civil War going on in another country. And the level of trauma, generational trauma that's come from wars and civil wars, there's not enough time to talk about it. So that's my story. That's my upbringing. A refugee child leaning into the dysfunction of what we see in our society, the extremes, both extremes in my personal community, seeing my family, my friends and their family kind of led me to being here and doing what I do now.
So quick question about how old were you when those things were taking place in terms of the movement?
So I was about a year or so when the war was just taking off. And so I'm the youngest of three on my mother's side. And so there was three of us my mom had to carry. And I remember when I was younger, she used to tell a story of how she coped or how she tried to deal with the war. And one of the things that she told me, which I thought was wild, in trying to cope with the smell of dead bodies, she started smoking just to have a different smell and just to have a different scent. So I was about a year or so, or under a year, when the war actually started in Liberia.
So your formative years were basically shrouded in massive amounts of chaos and trauma and instability. Wow.
Losing one culture, losing a place you call home, and the war lasted for 14 years. Wow. So you can just imagine it was kind of back to back. Something else has started. And so for a stretch of 14 years, not being able to go back to home, there's nothing that I know of it because of the war, and we didn't get to stay there.
So with that being your formative years, and again, just sorry to hear that. I mean, it's to me, it's always amazing because it's like to meet people who have like the ultimate underdog stories, you know what I mean? Where it's like, sometimes, internet goes out here or some little will happen and it'll be like first world problems, they took too long with my burger, they did. And it's like, dude, compared to like living, the first 10, 12 years under war, is you can't even compare the two. And so could you talk to us a little bit about your journey through education? Because obviously if there's a war going on, maybe you have like, what was school like? What was education like, if you don't mind?
I think one of the major shift for me was because we flew from the country, we left. So I didn't experience the day-to-day darkness of it all. I did experience the displacement, being in another country, and my world, we will never know because of the Civil War, right? We will never know what my life would have looked like. And I think when we then sought refuge. We was in Ghana. We lived in Ghana for about 10 years or so. Then we came to America. I did poorly in school when I was a kid in Ghana. I used to sit in the back of the class on the floor. Yeah, I don't remember anything in the classroom. I remember people, but I didn't pay attention. And when I got home, my mom and the caretakers in the home were not on us to make sure we're doing homework. And so I kind of fell through the cracks. And then we came to the United States when I was an adolescent. So about 11 years old, I got into school. And because I did so poorly back home, I went back a grade. I was demoted and I did fourth grade twice. And thankfully I did. So I was the kid now in America, went to school. I struggled a little bit. The fourth and fifth grade was the hardest because that's me starting school in the United States of America. I remember my fifth grade teacher, every week she used to get her nails done. It was motivating to see a woman running the classroom with 15 or 17 students, and every week she had a new set of nails. That was one thing I remember, and I remember getting extra help. And I don't remember having a talk with myself, but I said, no, I'm not going to be one of the only two in the classroom always getting one-on-one help. And so that was the change for me. Elementary school, I did my schoolwork. I got passing grades. High school, then I started to be more aware. When you're in high school and you're going into a school setting, you're meeting different people, whether your school takes, 500 people or 5,000 students, you're relating to all of those people. Your parents cannot control that aspect of it. So you get to see, act, and behave with other people from different walks of life. And so I started to see that everyone was not well. I didn't know to call it not being well, but I just saw a lot of extremes. Either this person's all the way shouldn't be doing what they're doing, and someone who's not even engaging, they're just there. And so high school, due to me being so exposed to different people and different things, because we was in a diverse neighborhood, which is Worcester, Massachusetts, I started to lean in more to what is this? Why is everyone acting this way? And I realized there was such a thing like psychology and behavior and the psychology of it all. And so that's where the desire came in for me, early high school.
So was it always, were you always leaning that way? Was it a straight path for you? I know sometimes for some people it's like, I'm kind of leaning this way, but this seems to be the one, or they're just good at a lot of different things.
It happened to happen to me. When I was much younger, before high school, my dad always did this thing where he would always ask me, it seemed like he was very strategic, and when he did it, it was frequent. I don't recall if it was every 6 months or every year, but it would be, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? And I kid you not, I listed everything in the book. I was much younger. This is way before middle school or so. So somewhere in elementary school, before middle school, I went from wanting to be a nurse. I just said it. I had no imagery of it. It was just, you hear, like when mom and dad are talking, or the elders are talking, you hear a nurse, a doctor, the teacher. I said nurse. And then I said a doctor, and then I said a movie director. And then when I got into elementary school, my friend and I, my Kenya friend, we tried writing a movie, a script. We did, I don't know what happened to it. And then everyone said, oh, you have the body for a model, which I don't think. I just think God made me this. When I'm like, oh, maybe I could do that. Those things, I never really gave them any thought. It was just things that I heard and I repeated. But when I got into high school and I experienced other people and I engaged with other people, the idea of becoming a therapist just happened to me. I saw people living in a certain way. And when I discovered there's a way in which to help them do something about it, I leaned more into that.
Did you want to go? Or?
Yeah, so then my question is, when you look at that transition from high school to college, especially coming, like you said, is like, man, you know, you came here and struggled in school early. Okay, you know, got inspiration and aspiration from one of your teachers, and then, you know, started to kind of develop. How was the transition from high school to college? Was it just like, hey, man, you know, and now that I've figured some things out, I've kind of, I guess, either moved past or kind of outgrown some of those things, or was it just like you said, seeing all the trauma and seeing all the heartbreak and those issues? Was it like, hey, that's my gas, that's my motivation, and I'm just gonna go do this thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in high school, early high school, most high school do this. You start to go to visit college and college tours and things like that. So when I knew that, I had did a research, and then we also had, fortunately, all schools have this. If you have a great relationship with yours, is great, a guidance counselor or a school counselor. And so I think I met with her 2 or 3 times, and it was like everything I talked about was in healthcare. But when we was done at the end of the day, it was being a psychologist. And my talk with her, that was like her takeaway. And so because I knew that, okay, I'm being told by this person who met me a few times, I have this desire to really want to figure people out. Like, why are you acting, feeling, behaving this way? And so when we started to do the tours with colleges, looking for colleges, I knew that's something that I was going to focus more on. It wasn't nursing or becoming a chemist or a scientist. It was strictly behavioral health psychology. So from 10th grade up until graduation, I knew that. It was a knowing. I didn't necessarily do research on it, but I would talk to teachers about it. And then once I knew that, I had a teacher in high school that speaks to what you guys are doing, you know, laddering your success. He pretty much single-handedly changed my life because he helped me. It's simple stuff to some people, but he helped me fill out an application for FAFSA. Now, if you don't have funds and you come from a family that don't have anything, they can't even help you with the application. They don't even know what FAFSA means. And you have this amazing teacher who's willing to take their time to help you. The way that he helped me, I've helped so many people in doing their own FAFSA application because he really helped me. And getting the funds played a major part, because getting someone who can help you get the funds is also believing in what you can do. You're saying, hey, I want to go to school to become a therapist. He's saying, you can do it. Let me help you get the money this way. That played a part. When I got to college, I didn't have any school spirit. I did my schoolwork. I don't remember taking books home in high school, but I did my work at school. That was it. Because I was learning now. I knew better. I knew that I went through the shock of 2 years, 4th grade and 5th grade. There was a shock. I just came from a different place where no one paid attention to me. I sat in the back of the class. The teachers didn't engage me to what the both of you do with students in the community. I didn't have that. But even when I had it, I felt like there was too much. Like, why am I always getting one-on-one? Why can't I just be like everyone? So I went through my own transition academically in my head. So when I got to college, school spirit on 1,000. I was go, 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 go. And I remember telling someone, they said, well, if you're, you know, spending your own money for education, you really want to pay attention. Probably that's why I became more motivated. But so once I got into high school, once I got the green light, college, once I got the green light and I got into college, it was my experience also kind of, I don't want to say mature me, but kind of pushed me into that path a little bit. So by the time I got into college, it was like, okay, we know what we're doing. Let's do it. And we did it. I did it. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I see a lot of parallels to myself. You know, when people talk, you kind of say, I remember that for me. And that's one of the coolest things for me when I was in high school. I was just a lazy student. So, you know, I was, you know, one of those ADD, ADHD kids early on in elementary school. The teachers couldn't do anything with me. High school, I just kind of, in high school, the thing that happens was it almost seemed cool to be dumb. It seemed cool to not do anything. So I was like, I'm going to be dumb. I'm not going to do anything so I can be cool. And if you don't have, you know, proper guidance, that's what happens. And And I was really bright. I just lowered myself so I could fit in with my surroundings. It wasn't until I got to HCC, shout out to HCC, Houston Community College, that, I had that teacher. I can't remember her name, but she was my sociology professor. And I knew I made it when she said, certain students don't need to take the final because your grade's high enough. And then she said, raise your hand if you're taking the final. And I raised my hand and she said, you don't need to take the final. You already got an A. And I said, wow, I made it. I made it. Wow, I don't need to take the final. Because trust me, back in high school, I had to take the final. If not, I wouldn't have graduated. But I want to continue on. I want to ask you about this. So you kind of found your way in college, right? You kind of understood your path, understanding people. You've got the school spirit. You got the pom-poms. You're going in. During this process, as you're becoming a therapist, did you experience any struggles, any obstacles during that time? And if you did, how did you deal with them?
Yes, the few struggles. There are some you don't know their struggle until you actually leave that life or that season of your life. You don't know that it's a struggle until you're in retrospect. So, for example, the healthcare field, therapy is mostly predominantly women. And so out of 100% of therapists, licensed professional, less than 5% are African-American in the United States of America. Less than 5% are African-American. What percentage is African?
Wow. So educate us. Tell us.
Yeah.
You have the desire, and this is like you have this call, like you're called to do this, or you're being pulled to do this, and you get there, you're like, where's the representation? I do see brown people, but where are the Africans? I mean, your feet touch the soil in the continent. And when you can't see that, it don't become a thing because you're so driven, you don't realize it's a struggle until after the fact. And that's one of the things that it was there. I noticed it. I went to a predominantly all-white school. Didn't bother me at all. Not seeing people that look like me as I got closer to do what I wanted to do, which was being in private practice. You don't see that many people. And so the voices are not there. Who do you go to for help? Who's going to guide you in the right way? Who is not going to be a gatekeeper? That was a struggle. The other struggle, how do I stay who I am and do an amazing work in being a therapist?
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole. Thanks so much for listening to LYS. I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk to the parents. That's right, mom and dad. Parents, prepare your child for their best educational fit after high school with our comprehensive LYS Parents Guidebook. Our helpful guide includes a range of activities designed to help you better understand your child's unique gifts and abilities. Additionally, we provide valuable insights into the student loan debt crisis and offer practical tips on how to avoid accumulating large amounts of debt. Our ebook also includes a wealth of information on scholarships, grants, and payment exemptions that can help guide your child towards a bright and successful future. With our expert guidance, you can rest assured that your child is well prepared to make informed decisions about their education and career path. Don't let your child's future be in jeopardy. Invest in their future today by downloading the LYS Parents Guidebook. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to the show because it's some good topics.
Oftentimes people become a therapist and they lose themselves in the doctrine and the teaching, and that's when we need to go ahead and get our own therapist. But as I got closer to, okay, maybe, second, third year of college, I'm going to become a therapist. I know that. I'm going to do this in private practice, meaning I'm going to work for myself, have my own business structure, and work with the people that I want to work with. But how do I do it being African? How do I do it being a person who has a strong spiritual life? At the time, it wasn't strong, but who has the sense and the knowing of a spiritual life, but also want to work with people who don't genuinely get the space they need. That was a challenge. So I'll say those are the two major ones. There's so many others, but not seeing representation I'm not just talking about, a Black therapist in general, but an African therapist. You're walking this walk. Okay, that means I too can walk this walk because I'm still an immigrant, right? I'm still new. I don't care how many years you've been in America, you still discover something new every week or every day or every month. And so those were the two. How do I still be myself? Bring myself to the therapy room. That's me being an African. That's me being a person of faith and doing an amazing work with the people that look and talk like me and walk like me that need this space because they're out there. That was a major challenge for me.
I think, go ahead, Francisco.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just really mind blown. And even, again, when you break down the numbers and you say, hey, look, let's say the school is equal representation of, the census, right? And if you said equal representation, Africans make up, or let me say African Americans, Black people make up about 13% of the United States. If there's 100 therapists, there should be roughly about 13, roughly. But to say that there's only 5%, you know what I mean? Like, we're talking half of the half. And especially when you talk about the traumas of growing up through poverty, growing up through war and refugee status and all of those things. And then, you think about, well, when people talk about psychology, who do they talk about? They talk about Maslow, they talk about Freud, they talk about Jung, they talk about all of these people. But who's actually talking about African or Black, the psyche? You know what I mean? Because again, you talk different viewpoints and different ways of viewing the world. And so, you taking those steps is almost like you're pioneering in a way, you know what I mean? And so, can you tell us, this pivot to like tech and tech therapy, can you talk about that in terms of the direction you're going there and equipped to prosper? Like, that's a new form of pioneering and trying to basically offer services at scale. So could you kind of talk about that for us?
Yeah, I think, after my experience in college, getting in the field, working with everyone possible from 19 up. I don't have experience working with kids. I intentionally choose not to work with them for many, many good reasons. They need the right people, and I'm not the right person to work with kids. As I got in the field, as they say, once you leave school, you get in the real world. And I'm working, I'm seeing my own life experience. I'm seeing my internal change, my external change, my highs and my lows. I'm seeing other people that's in the community. In the workplace, I see the change, and I get into private practice. I've been in private practice for 4 years. Comfort Counseling Center is my private practice. Dual licensing clients in Massachusetts and Texas virtually. So in the last 4 years, we all know COVID happened, and everyone were forced to have an internal dialogue with themselves. Whether or not we did it, we had the time to do it. And being in my practice, and at the time I started doing more speaking engagement, and I will speak in the African community, speak at church, speak at different places. And when I'm done and the event is done and I'm flooded with people, and it's, and I'm like, I'm only one person. I can't see everyone. And the reality is I don't want to see everyone. And so it became a challenge. People are having issues, mental health issues in the African community, but we're really not addressing it. We're covering it up with prayers. We're covering it up with being strong. We're covering it up with being, we're in a better place. We're in the land of the opportunity. We're covering it up with so many things, and we're dying in silence. People are literally killing themselves.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that even though the cost of college can be daunting, the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook can assist you in realizing your dreams. You can identify and apply for scholarships using the information, advice, and resources in our comprehensive guide. Also, we've provided a template for a successful scholarship essay to help you stand out from the crowd. Don't allow student loan debt to control you. Get your copy of the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook right away to take charge of your destiny. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to that fire conversation.
And so In 2021, I logged onto my personal Facebook and I came across a video. It was about 5 minutes or so, and it was a wife, the wife's husband, the wife's brother, and a friend. The female friend was the one recording the incident. And so it was an abusive situation. The wife went to her home where she stayed with her husband to get some of her things because her husband was abusive to her. So you get all of that from watching this 5 minute video. And her brother was there to kind of protect her. And her brother and the husband went back and forth, hands on each other and things like that. This is an African pastor in Florida. And so the brother and the husband are going back and forth. And the brother said, you know, you're a fake, because this person is a spiritual figure leader. And the brother said, you're fake. How can you claim to do all of these things for God and then you beat your wife all the time? And so in walking away, the wife got whatever she needed to get. Her friend is the one recording the video. And so the husband says, you saying I'm fake. If I don't kill your sister, then I'm fake. He walks out. The next day, the wife is going to work in the morning, broad daylight in Florida. She gets shot over 6 times. I think it was 6 times or over 6 times. That video did something to me. It disrupted my spirit, and it was sickening to see that we're doing that. And so sometime after I posted about it, sometime after I launched a website. It was just a website at the time in 2021. It was Equipped to Prosper. And so I was offering mental health resources to the community, offering workshops and things like that. That video led me to do that. And then COVID happened, so much happened in the African community. In your various community, you probably heard some things. So many people committed suicide that no one really talks about. We're blaming things on witchcraft. We're blaming things that they're just a bad child, or they're just this, or it's crazy. And so in 2023, I did a speaking engagement. And when I was done, again, the amount of people that came up to me, I'm like, you know what? I had thought about it, but it was like, it's work. Are you ready for this work? And so 2023, I started working on the directory. So we went from just a website offering resources to the community to now having a mental health directory where Africans worldwide, anywhere you are in the world, if there are therapists near you, you can connect with them on this platform. It's a space for you to come where your spiritual and your cultural health are just as important as your mental and your emotional health. So that's Equipped to Prosper, and that's where we're at right now.
You know, that's a powerful story. You know, it's funny. One of the questions that we were going to ask was there a moment or an event that kind of launched you to start this? And you went right into it. And when you described that, and that was really powerful. I thought about what you said about COVID and how, you know, Festus and I have talked about it. We saw a lot when I was in the classroom, a lot of kids just people having no choice but to look at themselves in the mirror and say, you know, just doing like a full update. Where am I mentally? Where am I physically? Where am I spiritually? Where am I financially? Just where am I? Where am I? Like, where am I? You know, they had that opportunity, had that chance to do that. And I think so much negative was brought about during COVID. And we're slowly starting to see so many of the great, amazing things that were brought out from COVID, Equipped to Prosper being one of them. I think that this really creates an opportunity, especially being, you know, Festus and I being children of Nigerian immigrants, of African immigrants. You know, we amongst so many others always talk about a lot of the things that we had to deal with growing up as kids. And especially growing up in America and almost not being African enough and not being American enough, and being caught in between, and just so many of these issues. And so even as I get older, I start to really see the importance of representation and seeing someone who looks like you in certain places and certain views.
Mhm.
So with that being said, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the shortcomings that you're noticing? Of course, we've already talked about the lack of, like African therapists and things like that in the mental health community, but what are some of the other shortcomings that you see in the African community when it comes to like mental health?
Yeah, I think one of the top ones on the list, because the continent and Africans were, by nature, were very spiritual, and is a great thing. But every strength can be a weakness in a certain situation. And so one of our shortcomings is trying to connect everything to a spiritual warfare is causing us more issue than we can think of. A lot of people in our community is everything is spiritual in a sense is true, right? People speak to, and depending on who you are and your level of faith, you know that we are spiritual beings and things can happen in the spiritual before it happen in the physical. We're also emotional beings. God gives us their emotion to be able to relate to each other, to be able to reverence him. You can't worship God if you're not emotional. You can't worship God if you're not spiritual. And so I think a lot of the mental health issues we're seeing in the African community is being swiped under the rug or being mislabeled as a spiritual warfare, as witchcraft, as a babalao have done something, or this voodoo man have done something. And that's one of the greatest shortcomings that we have. That will be one of the top on the list, is thinking that someone life challenges is as a result of something satanic.
And now I'm gonna go off script because I think this is such a very powerful point. Is and again, some people, religion and spirituality, they think they're saying the same things. They think they mean the same things.
Mhm.
And also people, are people of the book versus people of the, of the religious culture. I think those things are interesting, but it as you're speaking, one of the key scriptures that comes to mind is there's basically a lawyer who challenges Jesus, and he says, what's the greatest commandment? And Jesus's reply is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength. And then the second is like it, to love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that as spiritual people, we leave this mind concept out. So when you're talking mental health, your mind is included in the spirituality, because if you talk about what is spiritual, you're talking about somebody's very essence of their being.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting how, like you said, as Africans, we can be very spiritual people, but just leave the mental aspect, like the whole development of thought process. And that thought process, like you said, there's filter of emotion and different types of things that go into that. So, I guess maybe, and you can't solve this for everybody, you know what I'm saying? But maybe for us right now who's listening, you could throw a little bit tidbit out there. How do you see reconciling this? Is it more of a religious mind where it's more, like you said, a chicken foot, you know what I'm saying? A witch doctor, or is it like help us, help us, help us, you know what I'm saying? Please,
Yeah. So there's this debate, and every decade there seems to be a debate on something that is had globally, like the entire universe, and that is spirituality and religion. And every decade there's this debate that changed, that's controversial. And one person can say, well, if you're, if you're religious, you have this with spirituality, or if you're spiritual, this is a sub. there's that. So it's almost like we have to define those two, and defining those two is subjective. Even dictionary are subjective, because when you open two dictionary, they're not going to describe Africa or love the same. And so I think there's that piece that our first community that we're exposed to, which is home, whatever the home tells you, this is spirituality.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole once again. You know, these days, many families are busy, but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast.
As you're moving through life, you have life experiences that kind of either breaks that down for you and say, no, this is not spirituality is something else, or shapes you in a way that you cleave to this is spirituality. And the same for religion. The way I look at it is religion is under spirituality. And religion is a word that's been misused and can be misused in so many different ways. We are a spiritual being in a sense that people don't know how they got here. They don't know how we're going to leave here. That's spirit. We're a spiritual being. We can say, okay, we'll just put God on the side for a second, but we don't know how we got here. Yeah, we know the sperm and the egg met, but how did you form into this? The skin tone, the eyes, the nose, the talk, the swag, all of that. And then we're going to leave here. And so I think that's itself. And then the root of it, if for that person is God, then that helps you explain what the reality is when you say spirituality. Now, religion to me is in a sense of culture. When you have a certain culture, maybe you're an Igbo man or you're a Hausa man, or maybe you're a Zulu woman, there's certain clothes you might wear, certain things you might do, certain places you might go that you won't do if you're from another culture. And I think religion is that. Religion guides the way you show up in this spiritual, whether you're going to the mosque, the synagogue, or church. I think religion tells you how to show up. And I don't think that they're under each other. You have this spirituality, you're aligned with this, but you have to show up some way, somehow. Are you wearing hat in the church? Are you wearing hat in the synagogue, in the mosque? How are you showing up? I think that's what religion tells us. And then our soul and our daily practice is the spiritual aspect of it all. So there's that. It's so important for parents, elders, aunts, uncles to really gradually learn at their own pace that we have our emotional self, we have a mental self. And in my experience, I've been in the healthcare field for 16 years. I've been a therapist going on 10 years. And so the way I define mental health now is a little bit different. Because when we think of mental health, people just say the mind, the mind, the mind, the mind. If the three of us on here, say lost a job during COVID, our day-to-day routine was impacted because we lost a job. It might impact what we eat, how we eat, how much we eat, when we sleep, if we overthink, where we go, what we buy. That shifts our psyche. So we have a financial health. If the three of us during COVID couldn't go places, because most of us couldn't, you have to stay in the house. You can't watch, the football game. You can't watch the World Cup. You can't watch tennis because they're not playing, they're not making new movies. There's no new shows. You can't see your friend, at an outing. Your social life get impacted. We have a social health, right? And then I can go down into our physical health, our mobility, the way we move, we have that. And I look at all of that as it relates to mental health. If any one of those things, our spiritual health, our financial health, our social health, our physical health, if any of those are impacted, we feel it mentally. And so I think is getting people in our community. Yeah, the word mental health can throw people off, but if you get fired today, and you don't get a job until after 6 months, your mental health is impacted. You can not tell me otherwise. It might not be severe, but there's something you're experiencing. And so I think that's how we should look at it. Still keeping the word, because we need to identify in some way, but letting people know that it's not all witchcraft, it's not all the devil, it's not all someone, the chicken feet or the egg on your car, and all of this is that life is going to have experiences that forces and kind of like pressure us to shift and change. And when that happens, our mental health and emotional health is impacted.
Man, awesome, man. Yeah. It's just that, I mean, I think there's an awesome reason why we met. And for those of you who watch our in-person podcast, we do the in-person podcast at a place called the SED Institute, Society for Africans in the Diaspora, which is a Pan-African library here in Houston. And just hearing you speak about what you just spoke about just validates how we met, how at least I met you, and I met you for the first time at SED, and I said, well, this is just the perfect place for you to be, so we can continue this conversation. And so, yes, just thank you so much for that. Real quick for our listeners, please let them know how they can connect with you and anything that you're up to, any upcoming events that you may have.
Yes. So for therapy, in me being a provider, I still see individuals, so I still work as a therapist. I have a private practice that's strictly online virtual, so I see everyone remotely. And that is at www.comfortcounselingcenter.com. I work with Black Christian professionals and entrepreneurs struggling with depression and high stress. And I help them kind of overcome that shift into different perspective to help them and identify coping skills that work best for their lifestyle. So that's private practice, me being a provider. If you're a therapist out there, if you're an African therapist out there, if you're an African psychologist out there, if you're an African psychiatrist out there, and you have the passion for giving back and serving your community, please take advantage of joining the directory, get listed, have your profile on there, so people that are in your area will be able to find you, connect with you, and you can start having the impact that you want to have. And that is on Equipped to Prosper, www.equippedtoprosper.com. And that is the mental health directory for Africans worldwide.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Comfort Nyeswah-Wiafe. Thank you so much, Comfort, for sharing your invaluable insights with us today. Your expertise as a therapist and mental health advocate that you've shared today have been truly eye-opening. You are truly a game changer. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into Game Changers by Laddering Your Success. We hope you found inspiration in Comfort's journey and discovered new ways to enhance your own growth and well-being. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Stay tuned for more game-changing conversations with extraordinary guests. Until next time, keep striving for success and embracing positive change in your life. Take care.
Oh, you're still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS Podcast.